Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Tim Donner, Scott Cassenza, and Graham Noble, and this is the Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. The U.S. Constitution gives the president the power to suspend a key protection afforded to those seized by the government. Stymied by multiple nationwide injunctions initiated by district court judges, President Trump may now institute that power on the eve of an oddball Supreme Court case set for argument on Thursday, May 15th. The administration seems to have given the High Court an ultimatum: reign in the lower courts or habeas protections will go away. No reason to not just jump in here with Mr. Scott Cassenza, Liberty Nation News' top legal eagle. Scott, will President Trump join Lincoln and Clinton in restricting court access? I mean, is this something we're prepared for?
Well, I certainly hope he doesn't. Removing habeas protections is something that those of us libertarianish type folks think is a bad idea because of the key protection it does provide. Right now, your one protection for being able to redress an executive action, whether it's your local police, state police, or the FBI or immigration officials, is that you get to go to court and challenge that action. And the mechanism by which you can challenge it is the court has the legal right to demand of the executive branch, bring that person before me so that we can sort these claims out. And if they lose that right to order the executive to bring the person before them, then you may be on a plane to El Salvador or somewhere else. Now, that is not unconstitutional because it says within the Constitution that the president can suspend that power, but he can do so in the event of an invasion. And I think that this is a thin legal ground to say the most charitable way to put it, I think, is to call, for instance, the MS-13 or Tren de Agua an invasion, or just general illegals as an invasion, when we know that the immediate past president, according to the current president, that the immediate past president invited these people in, practically, gave them airline tickets and sustenance and luxury hotels and monthly stipends better than we give Americans that are destitute and down on their luck. So to call that an invasion and then have that justify the removal of habeas, well, that's my opinion. What will the Supreme Court decide? I don't know. It's an oddball case because there are three cases now consolidated, and there's no quote-unquote question presented, which is usually how the Supreme Court operates. They establish a question presented and people argue for that. This is all on a motion to basically overturn the lower court injunctions, which, as you said, are nationwide. And the idea from the Trump administration is if one person, for instance, the Maryland father, for instance, if he challenges his deportation, then a court sitting in Maryland might reverse that judgment or something like that, but then not rule for all persons, or in the United States who happen to come from Venezuela, for instance. That's right. The sort of thing that they're arguing against, that it's inappropriate for those district court judges to issue these nationwide rulings when they should confine their rulings to a very specific set of plaintiffs and facts.
This particular current controversy concerns President Trump's day one executive order on birthright citizenship and denying U.S. citizens U.S. citizenship to those whose parents were in the country illegally when they were born. Andrew, is this the right place to plant the flag on this?
The constitutionality, I'll defer to one of the greatest constitutional experts in the world today, Mr. Scott Cassenza, of course. But it just shows that he's advancing at warp speed. The whole Trump agenda is just advancing at warp speed, whether it's trade or immigration. He wants to get things done as much as possible, particularly, a year before the midterm election season. But when it comes to birthright citizenship, I mean, so many countries already have restrictions on this practice outside of North America. Canada has similar policies in the United States. But, you look at Germany, for example. Germany, one parent must live in Germany for at least 8 years. In the UK, if one parent is a citizen or legally settled, that's another issue. But overall, no matter whether he's taking legal avenues or he's ruling with an iron fist, he's doing so at Trump's speed, as the White House usually says. And just before, go on a different subject here, with China, for instance, the experts have said that China wants to drag its feet before the midterm elections to weaken Trump and to get the best deal possible. But Trump knows these things. So he's going to just, hammer out these issues as fast as possible and say, look how much I got done in my first year. And then sit back and relax and look at the fruits of his efforts.
Why would we want to emulate the Germans? That's my question. What does that have to do with anything?
I don't know. Every 50 years.
I'm pointing out the restrictions on birthright citizenship. That's all I'm pointing out.
For countries that aren't the United States of America, the greatest immigrant success. I mean, we're a country of immigrants. Unlike you Canadian.
Andrew, way to step it up.
But
I'm not advocating anything. I am not advocating anything. All I'm pointing out is that there's just other restrictions. That's it. Outside of the American.
All right. Settle down, Andrew.
How do I Scott points figures at me? I get nervous.
Well, okay. Well, Scott, stop scaring Andrew. Okay. Tim, can I go to you now? Can I pivot to Tim, please? I mean, okay, so this kind of seems unprecedented, and according to Scott, very unpopular. But we also know that Trump isn't the first guy to use the measure before. I mean, does this equate? Is this a good place to drop it in?
Well, first to the matter of the district court rulings that had nationwide impact. For those unfamiliar with it, the district courts are the lowest rung on the federal judicial ladder. And it seems to me that the limits are inherent in the very position they hold. District court. It's not a national court. It's a district court. And if you have one single district judge out of, I think it's over 300 across the country, making national rulings, it effectively really sticks a dagger in the balance of power when you step in and tell the executive what he can and cannot do. They're able to actually dictate foreign policy with these national injunctions. Now, to the matter of habeas corpus being suspended, the most famous instance, of course, was Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War.
Right.
Because we were at war, and he felt it necessary to suspend habeas because of the fact we were involved in a bloody war involving the entirety of the country. That was relatively explicable under the circumstances. But the most recent instance was 1996, when Bill Clinton effectively limited habeas in the matter of the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. There were concerns that it increased the risk of executing innocent individuals, as Scott has said. But the basis for it was preventing frivolous appeals and expediting justice, which, of course, expediting it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better justice than if you take your time. So what it did, this Death Penalty Act, Anti-Terrorism Act of 96, it limited the ability of prisoners, particularly those facing the death penalty, to seek federal habeas corpus relief. And even many Democrats were concerned about it at the time, but the act passed. And so moving forward to 2025, I suppose, to use Clinton's own language, it depends what the meaning of invasion is. I mean, if it's a uniform national force, that's one thing. If it's the Mexican military invading the United States, that's a pretty clear-cut case.
The Supreme Court has said that they favor the plain understanding of those words at the time they were adopted, and I think that's what we should go on for our understanding of what an invasion is.
Well, I think this is where you come up with the difference between a textualist and a literalist, and those who believe we should use the intent of the words when they were written as opposed to the literal text as it is written. Right, Scott? I mean, this is one of the nuances of people who are constitutionalists, broadly speaking, in the judicial branch. But, this is an issue that is always at the forefront when there's any talk of limiting habeas corpus.
I just want to add one thing there. It didn't accelerate justice. It accelerated the timeline, and both justice and injustice were accelerated. So there are people who I believe were wrongfully executed during that time, and that was an injustice that was accelerated against them. And then there were people who were perhaps rightfully, if you believe that that's a just punishment, so executed without those habeas protections. So that just cut down the timeline.
Right, let's bring this back to what's going on now with President Trump. And Graham, is he just pushing the envelope? It just seems like it's just. I hate to say it, but it seems like it's a lot. It's a lot, and I think he's pushing the envelope. So I'm looking for somebody to tell me what the heck is the strategy here.
Well, I think he's, just acting out of frustration at this point. I'm very much on the fence about the whole habeas corpus thing. I think there are certain, and this is my personal opinion, that there are certain people in this country illegally who, quite frankly, don't deserve any rights at all, and we should just get rid of them as quickly as possible because they are dangerous people. The rest of them, I think they deserve, humane treatment and legal treatment, and they deserve to have their rights respected. So I think when we're talking about illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, to me, there are two distinct categories. But, that's just my personal observation. But, Trump is frustrated because, look, here's an interesting thing. I'm not going to bore you with the actual numbers, but if you look at presidents going back to Ronald Reagan and you look at which presidents, deportations by president. And we're not including Trump's current term because we're less than 4 months into it right now, so you can't say. But, including Trump's first term and going back from Biden to Reagan, the order of deporter in chief goes like this: Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Bush Sr., Reagan, Obama, Biden, and then Trump. He's deported the fewest people as president out of all of those presidents, and yet none of them got the sort of pushback that he's getting, particularly from the courts. And so, I'm sure he's enraged by this. And I think the whole habeas corpus thing is like, to me, that's like a Hail Mary. It's like, we've got to rein in these judges. And these judges, let's face it, these judges are out of order what they're doing. And it is political. And he's saying, okay, if you don't rein in the judges, I'm taking the nuclear option, which is suspension of habeas corpus. I don't think we should start suspending those kind of rights. That's not a good way to go, I think.
I will add this: the quality of the district court judges. Wow. If you watch some of those confirmation hearings from the Biden administration when there were, it was pretty bad. Some of these folks with just trash records and non-intellectual, basically wokey types. So it's no surprise that you see a lot of that.
Well, they've
been propped up by the big guys. So.
I was just going to say on the matter of the rankings or the deportation standings that Graham spoke about, it's sort of like the unemployment rate. You have to consider how valid it is when, for example, Joe Biden called any person who was turned away at the border and sent back to Mexico at the border was considered a deportation. But of course, that wasn't really a deportation. That's very different than what Tom Homan is doing now, where he's searching for and finding illegal aliens and arranging for their departure from the country. That's just like the unemployment rate when they say, well, it's 4.2%. But the most important thing is how many people are seeking jobs. How big is the workforce? Because when the workforce becomes smaller and smaller, then the unemployment rate is going to become smaller too. So it's a matter of how these numbers are calculated.
Yeah, well, it's the exact same thing, Tim. They just changed what the definition of what unemployment is. Like,
All right, guys.
so we'll just take these people off the rails.
We're way off course.
Economics. No, we're talking about economics now. Let's get something.
Oh, we're way off course, guys. We're gonna close this one down. We've got to move on, but it was getting kind of toasty, a little spicy. Andrew finally got his voice back. That's nice to see. Look, Trump is definitely the flashpoint of all things judiciary in 2025, and where he will take habeas corpus next or not, or use and abuse, we don't know, but we'll let you know when we do. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking a break with us. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, or on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel, where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.